Let's learn how to play Affliction Warlock in Season 4 of Dragonflight with no information overload for raiding and Mythic Plus. Let's start off with the stat priorities. Now, first and foremost, and especially if you are a beginner, I want to say that you should always prioritize intellect and eye level over the secondary stats. So the higher the eye level the gear, the better. And that is final. So a lot of people talk about needing specific percentages, etc. of secondary stats. The actual fact is it matters less than you think. Now, that's not to say it doesn't matter at all, but it's actually different from person to person. And if you want to learn more about them, do something called simulating your character, and that will tell you actually if an item is better or worse, but that's going to be at the same eye level generally. 99% of times, just getting a higher eye level is going to be better. But the overall or general consensus on stat priority for Affliction Warlocks is going to be haste, then mastery, then critical strike, and then versatility. Haste, increasing how quickly you cast your spells, and a lot of our Affliction Warlock spells are dots or damage over time spells. It's going to make them last a shorter amount of time, but also actually do more damage in that amount of time, is the simplest way to explain it. Mastery is simply going to increase the damage of some of our spells. Crit, of course, giving us a chance to do double damage. And versatility, increasing our damage, but also reducing our damage taken. On the left here is the talent tree you're going to want to take if you're doing raiding or single target. And on the right is for Mythic Plus and AoE or Area of Effect builds, which is for multiple targets. I'm not going to go through every individual talent, as that again could be overwhelming, but don't worry, I've taken them all into account and you can import the builds below in my description straight into your game. The same is going to be with the spells. We're not going to go through every single individual one in the spellbook, but all the important ones will be covered, starting off now with the cooldowns. So we definitely have a few as Affliction Warlocks, some really good defensives and offensives. Defensives then, we've got Dark Pact and Unending Resolve. Dark Pact is going to sacrifice some of your health, but also give you a big shield as well. Whereas Unending Resolve is quite simply going to reduce your damage taken. And then on the offensive side, we have a Dark Glare demon, I guess, that we can summon. And this is going to extend your dots and do some damage as well. More on that in the rotation. And regarding utilities, we've got some really interesting ones. We've actually got a battle res, meaning you can resurrect someone in battle. But Warlocks have a bit of a different one to usual. They actually have a soul stone, and you can preemptively put this on someone, storing their soul in a little bowl, and then basically when they die, they can either choose to respawn, at the graveyard where they normally would, or they can respawn on the spot, including in battle. Generally, people would put this maybe on the healer or someone that you think is going to die that could be really vital to the team's success. We also have health stones, of course, that we can give out like cookies to people to restore their health, like a mini health potion. But Warlock, a demonic gateway is going to create portals between two locations, so one here, and you can zip between them, meaning you can get from A to B quicker or skip past mobs, etc. Burning Rush is the picture you can see on my right. Basically, you're going to lose small amounts of health, but also gain speed, and this is toggleable. Your healers may not like if you keep it on for too long, though. And then we've got some curses, which I'm not going to go through, but again, you'll see them in your spell book, which are going to do different effects to your target. Now that we're in game, we are actually going to start off with single target and raiding. This is the build here that I would recommend, of course. Now, you may notice here that my UI might look considerably different to your UI. That's because I've custom made mine using an add-on called ElvUI. If you do like the look of it, you can actually get this via my Patreon. There's a link down below for that, where you'll also have access to things like some really useful WoW spreadsheets, behind the scenes, bits and bobs, and also a VIP channel in Discord where you can ask me questions, etc. If you do have any questions at all, that is. Another thing I want to mention on my UI is this here. This is a Weak Aura by Luxfoss. Luxfoss is the guy who makes it. Weak Aura is the add-on used, and then the specific one is his. This basically is something, again, you can import in the description, and it's just a way of showing all your cooldowns and resources all in one spot so that you can see them directly in front of you without being all over the place, and I really love having these. So, as a Warlock, we use mana, of course, but you don't need to worry about that because you're not a healer. And then we've got these soul shards here. You can see I've got 3 out of 5 soul shards. Some of our spells are going to generate soul shards. Some are actually going to spend them. Then we've got our main spells here. Not soul swap. Don't want that on there, actually. Ignore that one. So we've got our main spells here. We've got Haunt on a 15-second cooldown. A ghostly soul haunts the target, dealing shadow damage and increasing our damage done to the target by 10 seconds. We have Unstable Affliction. Afflicts one target with shadow damage over 21 seconds. We've got Agony, basically is another damage over time that gets worse and worse as time goes on. Corruption, another damage over time spell. Siphon Life, another damage over time spell. Siphons the target's life essence, dealing damage over 15 seconds and healing you for some of the damage done. TLDR, if you haven't already worked it out, Affliction is basing the DPS off of dots or damage over time. It's a very dot-heavy build. It's so fun, but really actually quite straightforward. Then we've got Drain Soul. Drain the target's soul, causing shadow damage over time. Now, one thing to mention on Drain Soul is this talent here, Shadow Embrace. Shadow Bolt, ignore it. And Drain Soul, specifically Drain Soul, are going to apply Shadow Embrace, increasing your damage dealt to the target by 3% for 16 seconds, and that's going to stack up to 3 times. So if we use Drain Soul, you can see down here on the target, Shadow Embrace, I've now got 3 stacks of it, and that's, again, going to take 9% increased damage from us. So you don't have to cast Drain Soul 3 times. As it channels the entire spell, it will put on the entire 3 stacks. We've then got Vile Taint. That's right. Unleash a vile explosion at the target location, dealing shadow damage over 10 seconds to 8 enemies within 10 yards. Oh, so many numbers. And applies Agony and Curse of Exhaustion to them. So Agony is this one here, remember? Curse of Exhaustion over here, reducing their movement speed, okay? Then we've got Soul Rot. Wither away all life force of your current target and up to 4 additional targets, causing your primary target to deal damage and the secondary ones to suffer less damage over 8 seconds. For the next 8 seconds, casting Drain Life, remember this one, will cause you to also drain life from any enemy affected by your Soul Rot, and Drain Life will not consume any mana. So don't worry too much about that. It may sound a bit confusing. Basically, it's going to affect multiple targets, and then if you use Drain Life, it's not your Drain Soul, it's actually your Drain Life it affects. Up here, which we're not really using in this rotation, ignore me. But yeah, your next Drain Life will cause you to also drain life from other nearby enemies. So if you were using it, it would do that. Sorry, not Drain Soul, which is this one. Then we've got Summon Darkglare. I'm going to show you it because it's so cool. This one here. He's going to do, loads of damage. Summons Darkglare from the Twisting Nether that extends the duration of your damage over time effects. So basically, imagine we've got all these damage over time effects on our enemy. When we summon the Darkglare, it's going to extend those damage over time effects by 8 seconds. It will also serve you for 20 seconds, blasting its target for damage, increased by 25% for every damage over time effect you have active on the current target, which hopefully is all of them. We then have Malefic Rapture. Your damaging periodic effects from your spells erupt on all targets, causing damage, and that's going to cost soul shards. And if we actually pop over to Wowhead at this point, I just want to show you regarding the 2 and 4 set this season. The 2 set, Soul Rot deals 15% increased damage, woohoo. The 4 set, Soul Rot, grants 3 Umbra Fire Kindling stacks, which increase the damage of your next Malefic Rapture, the one I just mentioned. So basically, when you use Soul Rot, you're going to get 3 stacks, and that's going to increase the damage of your next 3 Malefic Raptures to deal 50%. Or Seed of Corruption. TLDR, that's the one we're using in Mythic Plus, so we're going to be using that later on in the video. Additionally, Umbra Fire Kindling causes Malefic Rapture to extend the duration of your damage over time effects and Haunt by 2 seconds. So again, when you're using Malefic Rapture after using Soul Rot, it's also going to actually extend your dots, your damage over time spells as well. And that is the tier set for this season. So how are we going to put this all together into an actual rotation then? So when we go into combat, the first thing we're going to do is put Haunt on the target, which is one of our dots, remember, and that's going to increase how much damage the target takes from us. We're then going to put on Unstable Affliction, putting yet another damage over time effect on, Agony, and also Corruption. So we've got 4 dots on the target. Now, you do want to keep these up, and one thing I want to mention is that this isn't so much of a rotation, but actually a priority list. And our top 4 priorities, or 5 even, is keeping up these dots, these damage over time effects. And you may notice, well, they're coming off quite quickly. How am I going to have any time to do anything else? Well, another talent that I want to mention is Dead Touch. Malefic Rapture causes targets suffering from your Unstable Affliction to take 30% additional damage from your damage over time effects for 8 seconds. So again, that's going to increase the damage we do from our damage over time effects when we use Malefic Rapture if they have Unstable Affliction on them. So it is really important that we get those dots up. So again, use Haunt, that's going to increase how much damage they take from us, then Unstable Affliction, then Agony, then Corruption, then Siphon Life. After that, we want to use our Drained Soul to keep up those 3 stacks, remember, of Shadow Embrace. Damage taken from us is increased by 9%. We're then going to cast Vile Taint. We're then going to use our Soul Rot. Then we can summon our Dark Glare. And then we're going to use our Malefic Rapture to spend our Soul Shards that we've got here. You can see we've got 5 at the moment. We're going to use this to spend all of them but 1. So just make sure you leave 1 left and then boom, we've done that. Apart from that, use Drain Soul if you've got nothing else to press. So again, keeping up Haunt, Unstable Affliction, Agony and Corruption and Siphon Life. Use your Drain Soul to get those 3 stacks of damage up. Then it's going to be our Vile Taint and then Soul Rot, and then use your Malefic Rapture to get to spend your Soul Shards until you've only got 1 left. Now, what you may notice is that our Drain Soul has procced. That's from the talent here, Nightfall. Corruption damage, that's one of our dots, has a chance to cause your next Shadow Bolt or Drain Soul to do 25% increased damage. Shadow Bolt is instant cast and Drain Soul channels 50% faster when affected. It doesn't really change the rotation at all. You should still be using it as it is in this rotation when that does proc. And you'll also see that your Malefic Rapture may proc sometimes like this as well. And if you're wondering what that is, for some reason my UI won't let me press talents, that's from Tormented Crescendo. While Agony, Corruption and Unstable Affliction are active, your Shadow Bolt has a 30% chance, which we're not using. Your Drain Soul has a 20% chance to make your next Malefic Rapture cost no Soul Shards and cast instantly. So when you see that coming up then, again, let's go through the rotation. We're keeping Haunt up, then Unstable Affliction, then Agony, then Corruption, then Siphon Life, using Drain Soul to get those 3 stacks of Shadow Embrace up. Then we're going to use our Vile Taint, then our Soul Rot, using our Summon Dark Glare, using our Malefic Rapture until we've only got 1 Soul Shard left, and then it's Drain Soul as a filler spell. And you can see, of course, when we use Malefic Rapture, boom, that crescendo, it's going to be absolutely instant. And that is pretty much it for single target. Let's have a look at what we're going to change around for the talents to then go into Mythic Plus and an AoE build. It's not much of a change, but there are a few things to note. You can see here the talents that are changing over, namely Seed of Corruption up here is coming over to us. We've then got Dark Harvest. Each target afflicted by Soul Rot increases your haste and crit strike. And we've got rid of Dead Touch and we've gone into Doom Blossom. When Seed of Corruption deals damage to a target suffering from an Unstable Affliction, they explode. So basically then, we're going to start off by using Vile Taint in the area where all our targets are, which is going to apply Agony. And then we're going to apply Unstable Affliction to our main target. And then if there is any targets left, like this one over here, oh no, it has got it on, sorry. But if there is any targets left that don't have Agony on them, then do put that on the other targets as well. But then we're going to use our Seed of Corruption. You can see there goes out that Seed of Corruption. Cast your Haunt, cast your Soul Rot, cast your Summon Dark Glare. Then use your Seed of Corruption as much as you can. This is basically your filler spell at that point. And then if a target is dying, like say you're in Mythic Plus and there's a Trash Mobs, you can use your Drain Soul because when they die, you will get a Soul Shard. So again, what we're doing here is putting our Vile Taint on. We're going to use Unstable Affliction and Seed of Corruption, using Agony on any other targets that it's not already on, using our Haunt, using our Soul Rot, of course using our Summon Dark Glare, then using Seed of Corruption as much as possible as a filler, and lastly, Drain Soul if people are about to die. So, one last thing you may be wondering is, what pet do we use? You may be aware that as Warlocks, I think, hang on, what are we doing? Well, as Warlocks, we can actually summon demons. Now, most of the demons do kind of the same amount of damage, and what I tend to recommend is that if you want something simple, where you just want to do some damage, it's not going to, wreak havoc everywhere, then summon an Imp. If you want an interrupt, I would summon the Fell Hunter, which is going to be able to interrupt spell casting, etc. Those are the 2 recommendations I would use, based on utility, really, which is all it really, in my opinion, matters for in Affliction. But that's it, guys. That is how you're going to play Affliction Warlock in Season 4 of Dragonflight. If you do need, again, any more help, please join the Discord. We've got a really friendly and beginner-friendly community in there as well. You can also join my Patreon, as I mentioned, for a lot of extra features, including my UI and behind-the-scenes info and spreadsheet. If you're looking for other guides, whether that be PvE, dungeon, or PvP guides on any of the classes in Season 4, please do check out my channel. And there's a playlist here you can click, which is for the PvE guides for Season 4, including the two other, I keep saying not demonology, the two other Warlock specializations.